look at that, you put the schedule forward a couple of hours and you're actually on in time. Hello and welcome to the Rangers Rabble podcast. This is your couple of hours post-match reaction to the first game of the season. Hearts 0, Rangers 0. Philip Clement did say it's going to take a few months to get up and running. It's no excuse. It's no excuse. I am joined today by Connor, Craig, and Iain. This might go slightly different than most reactions, seeing as we've all had a kind of chance to cool down and simmer down after the game. And by the way, hello to everybody watching. Thank you for tuning in. If it's your first time here, then and if you're watching on YouTube, then consider subscribing to the channel, give it a like, and follow us on all different socials. We'll just jump straight in it, Iain. Your thoughts on the game? Simple as that.
Please, thanks for coming to me first on that.
New guy, take the flag.
So, thoughts on the game? Well, we were kind of told to expect this a wee bit, weren't we? You know what I mean? The manager did say,
expect a draw. Expect a draw.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, there's an argument that says no Rangers team should, not expect to beat Hearts. But the point is, we've got to take the manager at his word, in my opinion. As much as half an hour ago, I might not have said that, but we've got to kind of understand that it's work in progress, I suppose, you know what I mean? But the tempo of the match itself, when it first started, Hearts set their stall out quite early with that early shot from Vargas, and Jack Butland had to make a good save. And then again, Handana bat on the crossbar. It felt like Hearts wanted it more in that first half. And that's worrying for me, because that's something you can fix straight away. Yeah. So if Hearts are looking like they want it more, then that's the question I would have for the manager. I understand that we've not got the finished 11 and a lot of players have literally just touched down. And I'm sure we'll go on to that in a minute. But if I'm seeing Hearts try harder, then I've got questions.
Is it as simple as that, Connor? Hearts looked as though they tried harder, and I would probably go along with that sentiment in the first half.
In the first half, I'd go along with that. Hearts looked the hungrier. They looked up for it. Certainly created a number of real good opportunities. But having said that, we could have been ahead in the first half as well. Cyril Dessers had a couple of real good chances that unfortunately we didn't take. So as much as Hearts certainly were the team who looked more up for it than us, the chances were fairly evenly balanced in the end up. So it's one of those ones. I think we were kind of prepared for it not to be a great performance as such today. I don't think it was ever likely to be up there as one of our best Tynecastle away performances, but you hope that we could still get the result and get out of there with 3 points. Not to be, unfortunately. I think overall, I do think a draw was probably a fair reflection of the game.
Yeah, it was. It's the first game of the season, though, so people are going to be, especially after the pre-season that we've had, a lot of folk complaining, Craig. Folk are worried going into the season, and I think I put it on social media as well. It was a case of get rid of all the negativity. I don't care about the performance. We need a win.
Yeah, it's one of those games where I think, taking a step back from it, you'd say a point away at Tynecastle isn't necessarily the worst result in the world, but sort of the pre-season we've had, the sort of upheaval we've had, you just want that. You just want that win, and like Connor said, we could easily have come away with the win if we'd put one of those chances away. For me, it seemed a bit of a hybrid sort of pre-season match. It still seemed like a bit of a pre-season game. First half, Hearts seemed to be more up for it, which at home you'd sort of expect them to be. But it just seemed like it was, and I don't think it helped having the majority of the same team. Obviously, with some of the new players not being necessarily available, and I'm sure we'll come on to that.
And look, I don't want to get into a big rabble, if you like, pardon the pun, right, Ian? But and I'll bring in this comment for RFC 72. Is anyone shocked? It's the same team as last year, basically, and it's the same questions getting asked. And I think, Ian, that's fair. But my question to you is, and look, it's easy for me to say this after the game and after a draw, not getting the win. But we've made 8 signings or whatever it is, and there's only one change to the team for last year in the starting game of the season. How's that possible?
Well, it's not the ideal circumstances, but that's how it's panned out for us. You know, you can look at a lot of reasons as to why that's been the case. Waiting to get people off wage bills, waiting for someone to come in. The Euros was on. Yada yada yada. Excuse.
How many new players Ian did Hearts have on that pitch?
Oh, listen, they signed someone this morning and were on the bench. You know, I forget the boy's name. Maybe Connor will remember it, but they literally signed him this morning and he was on the bench. You know, so you know, there's obviously been a different approach taken. Maybe Clement's thought, well, I don't want these new guys thrown to the slaughter already. If that's the case, then they shouldn't be Rangers players. You know, so. But I mean, we're talking about how we were all quite upset at pre-season. The truth is, Hearts lost 2-1 to Leyton Orient. They lost 5-1 to Spurs. Fair enough, you'd expect that, and they lost 3-0 to Fleetwood. So they had they didn't have a great pre-season, you know. So their preparation for this game you wouldn't exactly say was fantastic either.
No, and you know, Connor, I want this to be a kind of a reaction to the game and go through the points of the game. But I mean, you've got Scott B there saying, "Look, we have to wait until they are fit to train." That's the kind of players, Connor, that we've brought into the football club. And again, I'll sit here and say this: it's so easy to sit here after a draw or a negative result and have a go at the manager and have a go at the players. But facts are facts, Connor. We have a striker, a £1.8 million striker, who isn't ready to train at the level of a Rangers team.
Yeah, we do, and it's, you know, I made the point on a prior podcast about that you need players who are ready to go here and now. For whatever reason, Gamani hasn't been. I don't know if he's yet in full training with the rest of the squad. The last we'd heard was that he was doing solo
1.8 million, Connor. 1.8 million.
Yeah, I know, and that's you can't. When you're Cobble Rangers, you can't be spending the best part of £2 million on a player that's not even fit to take part in full training for whatever reason that may be. I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning is, because I don't think he's had any kind of injury or anything like that. I think it's literally just his fitness levels aren't good enough, and that is problematic. Especially, I mean, as Iain said, you know, they had the boy Malachi Boateng, who they signed for Crystal Palace. He's sitting on their bench straight away. You know. Okay, I don't think he played, but the fact that they're able to bring people in and they're straight into the squad, that's what we need now. You could argue we did have that with Černý today. He did come straight into the squad. He was on the bench. We said it last night that after his press conference, we probably felt he would be on the bench, and sure enough, after an hour he comes on. I think the other side of it, though, on the flip side, you've got to balance it out, because if you look at Kilmarnock away last season, 5 new players started that game, and we lost it. You know, so it doesn't always necessarily track that you can just throw all your new players in at the same time. Obviously, there's paperwork issues with Proper, which I assume is why he didn't play. I know Comment was saying that yesterday, but again, why on earth is the paperwork not done? His signing announcement was made during the week, so there's no reason why he shouldn't have been, at the very least, like Černý, sat on the bench today and in the squad. It's incredibly frustrating, because we always seem to be slower off the mark to get our new players bedded into the team. You know, the exception of maybe a Conor Barron or a Černý. You know, that does have to be bettered. There's no question about it. You know, we don't have time to constantly bring in players that aren't ready. You know, that aren't fit enough. You need players, as I say, in the here and now, that can come in and come straight into the team and hit the ground running. And for whatever reason, you know, for a variety, whether it's fitness or paperwork or whatever else, it's not happened with a couple of them.
Yeah, but look, Mark Doyle rejoined as a channel member. Thank you, Mark, as has moderator Cammy rejoined as a channel member. Thank you very much, Cammy. And Scott Miller with that super sticker. Thank you very much, Scott, for helping to support the show. Iain, I'll come back to you before I go to Craig. Just in terms of the game then. I think we all expected, and I think even the manager might have even said it, and we'll hear from the manager shortly, that Hearts were going to come out the blocks. If everybody knew that, right? They were going to go for it. They were going to attack us, etc., etc. For that first 20 minutes, you know, it could have been a couple of goals up. We looked very, very, very shaky in defence. The midfield was trying to firefight, and Dessers was left kind of isolated up front for that first 20.
He was, and to be honest, but Martin, we listen. There's no surprise that we never have a problem against Hearts historically, and why is that? Because Hearts always come out and have a go. Bless them. They're one of the few teams that don't put in a low block, and then we've got to sit and be patient, and then the Rangers team starts to get frustrated, all the rest of it. So that's why Hearts have never been historically a real problem for us. As far as I can remember, in the 40 years I've watched Rangers, I never really remember us ever struggling against Hearts. You know, so of course we expected them to come out in the first 20 minutes, the opening game of the season. They're at their home ground. Well, you know, Lon Shankland's got a massive point to prove, as does many of the other players. But that should have been no surprise. I think we should have been more ready for that. You know, I thought, you know, and I know we'll go on to it. I thought there was certain key players like maybe Diomande, as I said in my previous podcast, he went missing again a wee bit today. You know, he looked like that concentration.
He showed one or two glimpses, Ian, didn't he? One or two glimpses of the quality.
He did. There was one or two glimpses,
yeah.
But I thought he was kind of largely out of shape. And speaking of shape, I'm not entirely sure what structure we tried to do there. Listen, maybe I'm being a wee bit overcritical right now, and I want to kind of stop myself from going on because, you know, I mean, I understand that there is a process here. I understand that it's going to take Clement some time before he gets the team and the system that he wants. But I tell you what, it's sore not winning when you should win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if we're talking chances, Craig, Cyril Dessers shows us Cyril Dessers, lovely touch, fantastic touch, and it's. I don't know if I'm being unfair, but I mean, he could probably just pass that past Clark and he blasts over the bar. We created quite a lot of chances today, Craig. Quite a lot. We created a few chances that we should have scored, right? As probably did Hearts, right? But we should have scored. But in that chance there, that's Dessers. That's Dessers.
Yeah, there's 3 chances where you can say that he's unlucky, but my willingness to call it down to unlucky is waning. Has been waning for a long time, just because of that's who Dessers is. What I'd not Colin was talking about Igamane. I'm also worried that we've got a £6 million striker sat on the bench who desperately needs minutes and hasn't had a sniff today. Now, whether that means he'll be involved Tuesday over in Poland playing Kiev, I don't know, but that's where you can make a change there. It's not working with Dessers. He's having one of those days where he hits the bar, he hits the keeper. I mean, the one that later on where he cuts inside, he's got the whole goal to aim at, and he hits it straight at the keeper. Now, yet he's done well with the chance, and it's unlucky, but he's got the whole goal. He just seems to always snatch and hit straight at the middle of the goal where the goalkeeper's going to be. But yeah, the one where he brings it down, it's fantastic, and that's Dessers in a nutshell, where most strikers aren't bringing that ball down, and then he's just got to knock it past Clark, and he tries to lob him from sort of 10 yards out, and it's going to be a hell of a finish to do that. But it just seems like one of those days where I knew pretty early on it was going to be one of those days for Dessers.
Can I just say though, in all fairness to Dessers, and look, if any of you disagree, feel free to jump in. But in William's point here, does any other player ever have a chance? Here comes the Dessers blame. He's the only guy who actually gets into positions to score or create. Not blaming Cyril Dessers. He had one chance that he should have scored, and I actually feel, Connor, that the few other chances that he did have, I mean, the headers, any other striker in Scotland, that's going to go in because they're not as unlucky as Dessers. I thought that Dessers done fantastic there. It's hit off the back of the defender's head and it's hit the bar. every other chance that he had, I think he's been extremely unlucky, and it is just one of those days. That is certainly not sitting here saying that the reason that we drew is all down to Cyril Dessers.
No, absolutely not.
I think, sorry, Connor, I think he actually played well today.
Yeah, he did. I thought he played okay. I mean, just quickly before I continue with Dessers' point, because somebody in the comments is digging me up saying Proper had nothing to do with paperwork. Well, that's not what Philip Collins said in the press conference yesterday, to be clear.
Actually, this morning, Connor,
ought to be fine when he said that Proper was physically ready to start. So I'm only going by what I heard yesterday. That might have changed this morning, but then there's mixed signals straight away. You're saying he's physically ready yesterday, but you're waiting on papers. And if this morning he's come out and said he didn't train with the team, well then why? If he's physically ready, that so it's a confusion clearly that's been created there. I think we're both right on that point. But in terms of Dessers, I think the one that he gets, he probably should score. I can understand why he's made the decision he's made, because Zander Clark is off his line. And if he gets that right, we're all sitting here going, oh, what a goal, brilliant piece of play, excellent. He gets it slightly wrong, overcooks it, and it goes over the bar. The header is just, I mean, how unlucky do you get? I think Kai Rules, was it? I think he knows nothing about that. It takes the slightest nick off him, and that just is enough to see it sort of go into the bar and the post. Even the fact that it comes off the bar and onto the post for a lot of, if you get the luck with you, that sometimes does still drop in anyway off the bar. So, yeah, it's unlucky, and I don't think he deserves a battering today. I think he's had those 3 opportunities, really. I understand the one where he does cut it back and he sort of hits it down straight at Zander Clark for a simple enough save. You could argue he should maybe be looking to put that in the corner. But listen, it's one of those things. He's that kind of player, and he always gets a battering for it. It does seem sometimes he overthinks it when it comes to that last touch, that finish, and applying that. But today he done okay. And the truth of the matter is, he shouldn't have to do it all by himself. I didn't see really anybody else have any real opportunity of note. I know Tom Lawrence very nearly hit a wonder strike. That was a good save for Zander Clark. Connor Barron had an effort that was saved as well in the first half. But apart from that, did anybody else really threaten? No. So for me, I'm quite happy with Cyril Dessers' performance today, although obviously I would have liked a goal.
Yeah, I agree with the majority of that. I'll come on to Dessers in a minute, but I think on the Clement and Prepare side of things, what he said 5 minutes before the kickoff was he was interviewed by Sky Sports, and they basically said to him, "So why is Proper not playing?" And they said, "Well, we just decided that it was better that he sat this one out." Essentially, there was no mention of paperwork. There was because they actually get put to him. Was there a paperwork issue? He's like, "No, we've decided not to play him." And that was like 10 minutes prior to the kickoff. Connor, but you're right. I was up until that point, I was under the impression it was a paperwork issue as well. But again, it brings us back to what we were talking about at the beginning, doesn't it? Why do we take so long bringing all these guys into the first team? If it's if in Clement's mind it's still pre-season, then play it like it's pre-season. Get the guys some minutes. Just start them. On the Dessers thing, I think Dessers was incredibly unlucky today. And I don't know. Is it because it's Dessers we think, oh, bloody unlucky? He's always unlucky, isn't he? But that header that came off the crossbar and the post, and on the way to the crossbar and the post, hit the back of the defender's head. That was unbelievably unlucky, because that was. I don't know what else as a centre forward they could have done different there. To be fair, the one where he took his first touch for his kind of first, he's missing the first half, where he cut inside brilliantly in his right foot. And then he does what Dessers does an awful lot. He plays it right down the throat of the keeper. As much as Clark still had to make a chance. So if you think about the amount of goals we've seen Dessers put through the keeper's legs for no other reason other than he hit it straight, that's kind of what Dessers does all the time. But your natural instinct would be to move that ball into your left foot and whip it into the corner, which is what you would expect a kind of your top level number 9 to do. So he was unlucky to a point at that on that chance, I thought. But over the piece, I think there would be a lot more things to worry about than Cyril Dessers today.
A lot to worry about. Now, before we go any further, like and subscribe, folks. I'll get that in because I usually wait until the very end when most of the people have turned off. Should Hearts, right? And I just want a yes or a no, and then I'm going to read a wee statement, and then we'll come and we'll discuss it more. So just a yes or a no for everybody, right? Should Hearts have had a penalty for handball by Connor Barron? Connor, yes or no? Quickly.
No.
Iain?
No,
Hey.
not a chance. That's
No.
crazy.
Right. Okay. Now, what I will say is, I've spoke to these guys before. I know people are going to say one way or the other, depending on what side the argument they fall on, that they're biased or whatever. But I know the guy who runs it. I know he's not biased. Blah, 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 blah. But we had them on the podcast. It's Behind the Whistles, the refereeing podcast. And I'm going to read you what their interpretation of it was, and then we can have a good discussion on it. This is taken from Twitter. With regards to the Barron handball, we unanimously agreed that under the current law, it should have been called for a review and a penalty. His reasons for bringing his arm up appears to be to protect his face. We don't feel it was in any way deliberate. However, as we all know, intentional, unintentional, deliberate, non-deliberate is not written into the law. There is no mitigation in the law for bringing your arm up to protect your face. It therefore cannot be considered a natural movement and position. While our own opinion has always been it should, it's not the IFAB law's view. The next consideration was the arm in close to the body. He actually brings it out from the body at the point it makes contact. Conclusion is that he made himself bigger from an unnatural movement and a penalty under the current law. While we were told all referees had been retrained on how to apply the law this season, that's one we would still expect to be reviewed at the very least. Iain, you were quite vociferous. I like to get that word in.
Yeah.
That it was definitely not a penalty. Does any of that sway you at all?
Do you know, in all honesty, my understanding of it was on June the 14th, the handball in the box was updated by FIFA, yeah, and then applied in the Euros for the first time. Now, and I quickly, when we were having a wee chat about that in our group chat, I quickly had a wee look at it and scanned over, and there was some changes directed out to the referee. But if you're telling me, and I can only assume that you are telling me verbatim what these guys have basically recited back to you, then I do understand why someone would say it's a penalty. But my understanding was, well, the big problem here is there's a huge miscommunication between the rules and then what people think the rules should be, right? That's where and in all honesty, so if you look at that Connor Barron incident in its isolation, you think, nah, not a penalty. But understand completely last season that was a penalty. But apparently this season it's still a penalty. But the truth is, if they're going to adopt a more common sense of approach to penalty kicks and handball inside the box, then to me that doesn't become a penalty.
For me, it's a strange one, right? Because if under the rules that should be a penalty, which again, I'm not smart enough to know the rules, right? It used to always be for me, if your arm's in close to your body and the ball hits your arm as it's touching your body, or even if it's just away from your body slightly, it's not a penalty. If your arm's out, regardless of it's intentional or not, and it hits your arm in the box, it's a penalty. If your arm's up above your head or at the side of your face and it hits your hand or your arm, it's a penalty. The problem is, Connor, that I can't sit here and say whether that is a penalty or that isn't a penalty because honestly, I don't understand the rules. But if you're sitting there for a Rangers point of view and that happens, I would absolutely be shouting for a penalty.
Well, yeah, that's why.
With the current rules, I should say, so that I don't sound like a hypocrite.
Well, that's why I had the hesitation in giving my answer and saying no, because I'm really not 100% sure. You know, I think he's certainly his arm is in. You know, it's not as if, I think, it depends how you interpret it. They're saying, oh, he's pulled his arm out just before the ball's made contact, but to hear them say it, you'd think he had done all this. He didn't. His arm was still here. It maybe just went like that, which is a natural movement of the arm, particularly when he's in the air and he's on the turn. You can't, it's impossible, physically impossible for anybody to jump with an arm like that and turn without there being a slight movement. You can't do it. So you have to, you know, understand from that point of view, it is not a deliberate handball. He's turning away in the air and his arm's tucked in. Look, last season we know that would have been given as a penalty. We've seen it. The John Lundstrom one at Kilmarnock. It's not too dissimilar to that. And that was given immediately. That wasn't even given with a review. That was given on the field by the referee straight away, which is fair enough. For me personally, if Hearts had been given that penalty, I certainly wouldn't have been sitting on here ranting and raving about how it was the worst decision I'd ever seen. But it's about the consistency throughout the campaign, because we all know, Martin, if an incident happens tomorrow in the East End of Glasgow and Kilmarnock get a penalty for a similar situation, you know what the narrative's going to be. You know that again.
That's why referees, Connor, have to be consistent. That's why when it comes to decisions like that, if that happens again, that cannot be given as a penalty in any game in Scotland.
It can't be, but our referees are not consistent enough to properly do that, and inevitably there will be a dodgy penalty shout like that will be given, because that's the nature of it. I mean, let's be honest here. We've got Willie Collum in charge of running things right now. I don't know how great we'll be with it. I mean, that's a man who doesn't think punching the ball's a penalty kick. Never mind what happened today. So look, if I'm a Hearts fan, I want that to be given. But in all reality, objectively, you look at it and you say, there's not much you can do about that. It's about distance. It's about the fact that he's in the air and his arm is tucked in. I think if he's out here, he's in trouble. But because he's here, I think he's fine.
I mean, to settle it, two things. Nick Walsh gives us nothing, ever, right? And secondly, Stephen Naismith said it wasn't a penalty at the end.
Yes,
I mean, if Stephen Naismith's saying it isn't a penalty, then Craig, we can't really have any complaints, can we? But again, just to go back to it, just so that going forward, you know, we're all on the same level here. See, if I think something's a penalty against us, I will come on the reaction and say I think that's a penalty against us, Craig. And again, I'll repeat myself. I just don't know the rules. And you can read the rules all you want. Doesn't it make it any clearer?
No, reading the rules and understanding them is two different things. For me now, that has to be the standard. And the fact that VAR are looking at it, that should be the standard now for the rest of the season. And I agree with Connor. When I watched it back, his arm's sort of in here. It's not out. So for me, it's the natural movement of the body. What he's running back to try and get in, obviously get in the way of the cross. I always look back and go, when it comes to penalties, would I be claiming for it if it was the other way around? Yes. And then would I think it was harsh and I would, if we'd been given that, I would have still said it was harsh. So for me, that's why, in my opinion, it's not a penalty. He's not putting his arm out. He's not putting his arm to the ball. It's just come off his arm as he's made that natural movement, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, the thing for me is that's one of those ones. If we were given that penalty today, I'd be sitting on here going, we were lucky to get that penalty, but thank God we did. Simple as that. Absolutely simple as that. Right, before we discuss the second half, shall we hear from the manager? He spoke to Sky Sports. We'll do the Sky Sports one. I haven't heard this yet, by the way. I was watching the final episode of the series 4 of the boys on Amazon, the one about the superheroes. I was watching the final episode. So let's hear from the manager who spoke to Sky Sports shortly after full time.
Philippe, 0-0 on the opening day. How do you assess the game today?
That we didn't play a good first half. We were lacking physicality in the duels, mostly that. And then after, when we had the ball, we were too impatient, not enough quality, and not in the right positions also, some players. So we showed that in halftime, and the second half we took control of the game, and then we played better football. It's not top yet, but that we know. With new players coming in and the players we lost. So at the end, it will be an important point at the end of the road against the team who finished third last season. I think it's a fair result, and that Hearts took the first half and we took the second half.
What do you put that first half down to? Because you've got a lot of players playing out there that were here last season, so they know what to expect.
Yeah, but also some who missed pre-season, others also who are new, like Conor Barron. You miss a really important part with Lundstrom there to lead the team out of the midfield. So now the Oscar Cortes coming out of an injury also, and he was unlucky today. Also, he hurt his knee with falling down and getting a tackle. So no, we know we need to build things. At the end, it's a fair result. We could have won. Hearts could have won this game. So let's continue to work towards Tuesday and to recover well, because that's going to be important. Because Kiev is another step up.
You did have chances. Sander Clark did have to make saves. Does it go back to that word again, being clinical?
Yeah, of course. But I think Hearts will say the same after the game also, that they had to be more clinical in some games, some situations. So I think it's a fair result at the end of the game, and both teams had the chances, but there were two good goalkeepers on the other side, and also a little bit bad luck. I think the chance with Cirilli hits and bar and post. Yeah, those are the situations. If you score in that moment, then you get the 3 points.
How do you step things up then to make sure that you are firing on all cylinders for the whole 90 minutes?
Yeah, to keep on training hard, and with the games coming that fast and that thick, like this, the players gain also game rhythm. But of course, we need to make a rotation, because if I do that the same with the same 11, 9 games long during 4 weeks, we will have a lot of injuries again. So it's finding every time this balance, who has the power, who's ready for the game, and who's tactically ready, and then go hard to win the games. It's building with a new squad, new automatism.
You mentioned Cortes. How is he, and is there a worry that could be another long-term injury given what he's had to go through?
No, we don't know. So I didn't speak with the doc yet about that. They told me he hurt his knee with falling down, so we make assessment next couple of days. I never ask straight after the game, because then you can never make a good assessment.
We'll come on to Cortes in a minute. Iain, it's not something that we want to hear. That,
no.
And over the 90 minutes, a draw is a fair result. A draw was a fair result. If you look at the chances created, maybe Hearts even maybe shaded it a wee bit, but you can come away from that and go, it's a fair result. The first half, he comes out and he says we weren't good enough. Second half, we were a wee bit better. Doesn't make us feel any better, though, does it?
It doesn't. And I think we as fans have got two choices: we sit and be patient, or we don't. Right? I mean, that's the bottom line, because the manager and the chairman have come out and said, "Look, this is a project." Which, incidentally, Chris Boyd absolutely poo-pooed today. He just called it out and said it's a load of rubbish. And I understand that thought process. But what have we done as Rangers? So what have we done? We've signed up Clement on a longer-term basis to 2028. So whether we like it or not, we have to buy into whatever Clement does. You know what I mean? And that's the harsh reality of it. You know what I mean? We have to buy into what he does, or we pay through the nose to get him away if he's not doing what he's doing come what may. Then, do you know what I mean? So we've got to. I mean, it's hard for Rangers fans, because we've just come on. We've just, since '55, we've literally had this huge, period of frustration, coming up against our Glasgow rivals and all the rest of it. So if you're trying to look at it as independently as possible, then the starting point of our patience is already way, way low. So you've got to take that into account when you start thinking of things. But so to my mind, if I see us getting outplayed, but I know the system's coming along and there's a definite plan, then okay. And we can't tell that in one game. We certainly won't be able to tell it after the Kyiv game. So better people than us will know when to judge whether that's worked or not, incidentally. But I think if I see Hearts players trying more, then I've got a real problem with that. I've got a real problem with that, because that's something you install straight away as soon as you sign for Rangers, never mind step in the park. And yeah, we're going about Cortes later, but yeah, I've got a definite opinion on that.
Right, we'll hold it in. Just hold it in. Connor, he mentioned John Lundstrom, which people then went apeshit about, pardon my French, at 25-5 on a Saturday. I get his point, though. He's not talking about John Lundstrom the player. He's talking about leadership in the middle of the park. Now, whether you think John Lundstrom brought that kind of leadership is neither here nor there. He worked with Lundstrom every day. He knows him a lot better than we will ever know him. But I think he's right in terms of Barron and Diamande are two really, really good football players. But there just seemed to be something missing in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I think the overall point is a fair one in terms of the leadership in the centre of the party. The difficulty is we don't have that. We haven't really replaced that kind of ability there. I mean, Ryan Jack's gone, John Lundstrom's gone. Yes, I suppose Dujon Sterling can play that role if required, I'm sure, but we don't really have that right now. And obviously Campbell's on his way out. So yeah, I think there was a bit of an issue with that. But then again, you did have Tom Lawrence in there. I thought Tom Lawrence done okay. I think I don't like when managers, because although I get the overall point they make, I would rather they just made that point without having to reference a player that everybody agreed had to go. It was like Gareth Southgate referencing Calvin Phillips during the Euros. I don't think anybody thought he should be in that squad. In the same way, nobody would. I mean, I guarantee you, anybody who's annoyed that he's mentioned Lundstrom would have been far more annoyed if John Lundstrom was still in the team and had started that game today. So I think whilst the overall point of leadership in the middle of the park is a fair one, and that's clearly he's got to find somebody who can do that, whether that is somebody within the ranks that's already there, whether that is bringing now another player in to aid with doing that, time will tell. But for me, it is a fair enough point to make. Just don't reference John Lundstrom when you're making it, because nobody thinks he should be in that team anymore.
I think, personally, I just think that's quite nitpicky to get annoyed at that, if I'm being really honest.
Yeah. I'm not particularly annoyed at it. It's just, why do it?
But even the fact that he mentioned Lundstrom because of leadership, didn't mention him because of play, and people are getting pure arsey about it. And I'm like, God, there's plenty of things to be annoyed about right now. There's plenty of things to be worried about right now as a Rangers fan. Referencing a player who's no longer here when he's talking about leadership and getting annoyed about that, what is the point?
I know what's wrong with that. Lundstrom needs replaced. That's correct. Move on.
Yeah, but I don't understand the anger about that. Tom Lawrence was mentioned there, Craig. Again, I thought he done okay, as the background in your house seems to be rather loud. I thought he done okay, nothing great.
No, and I mentioned in the group chat, I at one point I looked up and I heard his name and I was convinced he'd gone off because I couldn't believe that he'd lasted the 90 minutes. I thought he would have been subbed at some point. I thought he had a couple of little glimpses. Obviously, he had the chance where Clark's tipped it over the bar, but all in all, I think he doesn't really, for me, have the legs and the energy to play in the 10. I think if you're going to play Tom Lawrence, then it's a situation where maybe you play a three in midfield, and Lawrence is one of those three, similar to when we used to have Davis, Jack, and Kamara, for example. But I don't think he should be playing the 10 because that role requires a bit more than what he can offer at the minute, in my opinion.
Somebody made a good point, and I can't remember who it was. I've seen it on socials that Lawrence is really good when he doesn't have to move.
Like pre-seasons, for example.
But linking up the play and stuff like that, long shots, great. I just worry that the way that I think Clement wants to play, with a high press, with the wingers who we'll get on in a wee second, I don't know if Tom Lawrence suits a Clement team.
Maybe that's the case. But what we do know about Tom Lawrence is he just disappears for huge parts of the game. You know, and as much as his shot was good, as Craig mentioned there, it was. But let's be honest, Clark was underneath it. That was one for the telly for him. You know what I mean? He literally just tipped it over the bar, you know. So as much as watching the accuracy of the shot and the time and the slow motion was fantastic, big deal. He didn't contribute enough, you know, and that's Tom Lawrence's problem. He doesn't contribute enough. We need someone better in there. I don't know where that person's coming from, because he certainly isn't at Ibrox at the moment. But it's just well, maybe he is, but he's asked for a transfer. But essentially, I'm not. Tom Lawrence went back to disappoint me again today. Now, there's no reason why Tom Lawrence shouldn't hit the ground running today, because he's been at the club a while. He's had a full pre-season. He's one of the senior heads there. He should be kind of grabbing the team and saying, "Look, this is how it's done. This is how I want you. This is how he should lead the line," in effect. But he didn't. Again, he's too easily marked. He drifts out of position, doesn't make himself available for passes, and almost looks like he doesn't want the ball sometimes. So I've seen that too often. I mean, listen, I might be, again, it's the not long after the final whistle and all that kind of stuff. But to me, Tom Lawrence is just disappointed too long for me to give him another chance. Love to be proved wrong, but I can't see how.
Well, Craig's just messaged there, Ian, to say he was playing today, but he's playing for Hearts. Jan Danda would have done a better job for us than a
I agree with that. I agree with that. I found it. I take it he's not quite match fit, because he brought him off, Naismith, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Naismith took him off near the end. I thought that was strange, because he was one of Hearts' best players, but him and Vargas ran their socks off all day.
But little signings like that other teams make, that you know, like, are we not allowed to sign somebody for Ross County?
Actually, Martin, I think it was you that mentioned in my first podcast. I think you mentioned about why didn't we pick him up? Did you? I think you mentioned it.
Well, I mean, if he turns out to be a really good player, then yeah, it was me. If he turns out to be average, then I don't know what you're talking about. But no, another cracking player that they've put. In fact, do you know what, Connor? Before we come and discuss Cortes, because I'm going to go Ian first with Cortes, right? Because I don't know what he wants to say, but he's got something to say, right? I think it would be slightly remiss, and people might not like this. I get that, because I can't stand Stephen Naismith. People know my dislike for that man, midget boy. Hearts are a decent team. You know, not anything world class or anything, but first game of the season, you know, there's going to be kinks and mistakes made at the first few games of the season. Can we maybe just take stock a wee bit, just sit back and go, yep, not the ideal result that we wanted. We would rather be playing at home against, I don't know, a crap team like Dundee United and hammer them. But Naismith's actually built a fairly decent Hearts team. As painful as that is for me to say.
He has done, yeah. They're they were comfortably third place last season for a reason. They've strengthened since then. They've so far managed to get through this window without losing any of their big hitters either, which is...
Have they had the best window, Connor? Have they had the best transfer window?
So far, you'd have to argue they have. Yeah, they got their business done nice and early. It got them set up well for this campaign. It strengthened them. So you see today, for example, with the substitutions, you know, they're bringing decent players on off the bench, which is an important factor as well. You know, there was no drop in quality, for example, when Alan Forrest comes on for Hearts. You know, there's no drop there that you can immediately go, yep, he's clearly, you know, going to be a weak link. This is a guy who's a usual starter for them as well. So they have done that quite well. And as I say, the fact that they've been able to keep a hold of basically every one of their players is quite, you know, impressive, given they did do quite well last season. They got far in both cup competitions, comfortably third in the league. You'd have thought there would have been interest somewhere for one or two of their players, and for, you know, they've managed to keep that. That might change, you know, come September. We don't know, for example, where the likes of Shankland, whether he'll stay, whether other players might go. But so far, they've had the best window without doubt, and they are a difficult team to play. Look, yes, we've got a pretty good record against them. Yes, Stephen Naismith hasn't beaten Rangers in 7 attempts as Hearts manager. I get all that. But if you look at the course of those 7 games, the vast majority of them have been tight affairs. It's not like we've tore them apart every time we've played them. You know, we did have
Pulled them apart a few times. did you not?
I was just about to say that. Jesus God.
Poor Connor, man. Poor Connor.
Honestly, Christ, man.
By the
Yes,
way,
we
Connor,
have.
Can you add into your while you're doing that? Talk about their right back and all, just very, very quickly, because I want to come to Cortes, but I thought he was quality.
But yes, no, we have had a couple of downs that we've done them, but a lot of the games have been tight. Yeah, the right back was pretty good. He did seem to have Cortes in his back pocket, unfortunately, for a lot of the first half. And yeah, that's the challenge. Or the challenge is getting around that and beating it. I thought that the entire defence was really good. You know, when you looked at balls that we were playing into the box and dangerous areas, their defence were much more composed in dealing with it than ours. I mean, every time a ball came into our box, it was panic stations and it was scrambles all over the place. It was ridiculous. Whereas they were composed, they were calm. You had the one where I thought Rabbe Matondo, it's a great header across the 6-yard box. That's the area you want it in.
That's the only thing he done in the game, by the way.
Yeah, it is, but it was a good piece of play for him. And when it comes across there, the defender, you know, there's no panic, there's no slicing of the ball. He's just dealing with it and clearing it away. Because if he mistimes that or he scuffs it, Dessers has got a tap in. And as I say, so you saw that for him, the composure they had at the back. And I think they're going to be a solid unit for anybody to come up against this campaign.
I know, and by the way, that boy can take a throw in. That's mental. That's mental, the length he gets on his throw-ins, by the way. Right,
Shades of Rory Delap.
Yes, very much. In fact, probably better than Rory Delap, to be fair. Right, okay. Matondo, I just mentioned there, come on, and for me again, what frustrates me so much with Rabbe is you can see how much potential, because of purely how quick he is, and he's actually, when he's on it, he's really good with his feet in tight situations, and he's quick, but he's never going to be good enough for me. He's never going to show it consistently to be good enough for me, but he had to come on in at the start of the second half because Oscar Cortes, it seemed to be in some kind of challenge. He's went down, he's hurt his knee. First game back after how many months out? First competitive game back after how many months out? And we don't know what it is yet, but that's another injury.
Yeah. I mean, just on Matondo at first there, you're right. He came on and he does the kind of hard bit. He goes past about 2 or 3 folk, gets into the box and beats himself sometimes. Doesn't do that final little pass.
Consistently.
Yeah, I know. It just lacks that composure, like many of our wingers have over the recent years. But in all honesty, Cortes, I hoped I didn't see that last. But what I saw today, what I kind of thought I saw last year, I'm not sure if he's right for the Scottish game. You know, I just got the impression he wasn't really up for that duel, and as good as Taylor was today, and Taylor was great, I've got to say, good piece of business for Hearts. He didn't fancy going up against him right from the get-go. And his head was out of the game the whole time. He got bullied by him, and I think that's what Clement was referring to in particular when he said we lost a lot of our duels today. Well, that was duel 1, 2, and 3, and he lost it big time. You know what I mean? And to the point where when he kind of went down and had his sore knee and then went in at half time. Now, if that was a real injury, they wouldn't have put him back out, or so you would hope with this new physio crew, or you know, kind of the guys we've got in the back, the medical team that we've got built up now. Why would you throw him back out there? And then I think he'd another 1-to-1 with Taylor, and he came off second best again, and all of a sudden it was take me off, you know. So listen, I might be a little bit pessimistic with that. I hope Cortes turns out to be the winger that we need, but I really saw. I didn't, you know, that way you look in a player's eyes and you just think, not seeing it. I just felt that he was a wee bit timid today, and that's kind of not how to start the season.
Well, personally, Craig, I felt as though, it looked as though he had rolled his ankle, and he looked quite upset actually at coming off. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm on board with a lot of the comments that he shot at. I'm not on board with that. But however, people are free to think and believe what they want. He wasn't having a good game again, but just back from a long-term injury. But no wide player, and I think that's why we were quite poor, because if we're going to be successful, if we're going to play well, it has to come for the wingers, because that's the way Clement wants to play. And the left and right side today failed.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I will say it once more. I never want to see Scott Wright in a Rangers shirt ever again. My patience for that boy lasted about 5 minutes today, and I was done. I'd have subbed him at that point. As bad as Cortes, or as poor as Cortes was first half, Scott Wright just didn't have any form of coherent thinking in his brain. And it might sound harsh to some people. And I agree with Matondo. He comes on second half, and the first thing he does, he beats one player and puts it into the stand. Where you're sort of thinking he's got 2 or 3 options to play the ball out wide. The one player that I did get a little bit of sort of, he's got a bit about him was actually Černý when he came on. I thought he actually looked pretty decent. I think having the ability for him to go outside or inside could be pretty key. And I'm just a bit gutted that he wasn't able to start. For me, if he was fit enough to come on for half an hour, I'd have started him and given him an hour, and then bought. If you're gonna play Scott Wright, I'd have bought him on to replace him later on.
I just don't think you play Scott Wright on the right. I don't. For me, Connor, it doesn't work. Yeah, he's got a bit of pace, but he's not going to really take the ball past a man, etc., etc. But every year it's the bash Scott Wright. He wasn't the worst on the park. He certainly was nowhere near the best on the park. He's not good enough to play away at Tynecastle or in European games or against Celtic for me. He's good enough to be a squad player when you're playing the lower league teams, if you can afford to have a guy in the books to do that. But in regards to Černý, Connor, when he came on, I think actually, now that I sit here at 10-5, I think the manager was right not to start him, because when he came on the pitch, you could see that he was a wee bit at the beginning deer caught in the headlights. I think it's going to take a while, not a while, a couple of weeks for him to bed in. It was almost as if Scottish football was just a wee bit too quick for the way that he was thinking and the way that he was playing. So I think actually, I think Clement got that one right.
Yeah, to a degree. I'm not.
By the way, you're allowed to disagree with me, Connor. Don't worry about it. You're allowed to disagree.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with all of that assessment. I mean, one of the first things he did was a lovely bit of footwork when he sort of dragged that back and flicked it in between.
The first thing he done was got on the ball and get tackled because he wasn't aware of what was round about him, and then he done a couple of good things with footwork, and you can see that he's going to be a cracking player. But all I'm saying is I can understand why the manager looked at him in training and went, not quite ready to start.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, to me, if that's the logic of the reason of not starting them, why play him at all then?
Because he needs to get some game time to get used to the league.
Right, but surely you'd be better starting them then, because if you start the game,
right, okay.
You're in with the pace of the game from the get-go.
Okay, so you start him, Connor. You start him, right? He gets the ball on the right-hand side. He loses the ball, Hearts counter and score.
But that didn't happen.
But obviously because he didn't start. What I'm saying is that's the chance that you take.
Well, it's a chance you take, but you take that same chance with Scott Wright that he would do something like that. At the end of the day, when he comes on with half an hour left to go, the tempo of the game's firmly been set at that stage.
People are tiring, Connor.
Where it is. But but Hearts had made a couple of changes as well at that point. And there was still
didn't change the left back. I'm going to keep coming at you. Didn't change the left back.
Oh, yeah, they didn't change the left back. That's true. But the left back at that stage didn't look that tired to me. At the end of the day, look, it's one of those ones. Whatever decision he made today, you could have poked holes in, I'm sure. I think on balance, yeah, fine. I thought Černý looked okay. I think Rabbit in the headlights is perhaps slightly harsh. First moment when he came on.
You know what? I'll give you that. It was a bit harsh. What I meant was it just took him a wee while to get up to speed of the game. That's all I meant.
Yeah, and
he's not coming in with the players.
Yeah, but when you're coming in a game like that, where the tempo is quite high, and it's your first domestic, league game in Scottish football, then yeah, you can't just come in straight away, bang, I know what I'm doing. When because 7 years ago he played one game in Scotland against Celtic. It doesn't work like that.
How do you know that?
But he certainly, I thought, as I say, technically he looked quite good. His movement with his feet at times was pretty good. And what I did like, actually, I must say, I thought him and Tavernier linked up okay. They did have a couple of good moments there. And that's important, because if he's going to be the starter on that side, which I suspect he will be, then he needs to have that relationship with Tav if he is going to stay. Obviously, that could change as well. But either Tav or Sterling, he's going to have that relationship with. So, for me, he's one that, off the mark today, see what happens come Tuesday, whether he makes an appearance there. Suspect he will, because European football should suit him to a T. He's used to that. And yeah, you go for there. But I think he'll be fine. I think this time next weekend against Motherwell at Hampden, I'm pretty sure Černý will more than likely be starting.
Right, Ian, you've put a couple of comments in the private chats thing here on the thing that we use to stream. Do you want to talk about Tav? But before we do that, before you go on to Tav, stay on Černý and your thoughts. Listen, I'm saying that I can see a player there who, once he's fully up to speed with the game, I think it's going to be a real asset for us. I want to make that clear, but you jump in.
Yeah, I think, the hope is with Černý is we've signed someone who's tried and tested. And to be honest, as much as I actually agree with Connor, to be honest, if you're going to play Černý, you start him. To throw him in on what was a disjointed team wasn't ideal, but I still wouldn't have not done it. You know what I mean? But in all honesty, yeah, that's fine. Tav just did what I expected Tav to do. He's just going through the motions again. If Tav isn't running forward and supporting the centre forwards, I don't know what Tav's role is anymore, because it's certainly not defending. Yeah. So the point is, if we can't have Tav being the majestic guy running forward, putting some great balls in, taking free kicks, all that kind of stuff, then Tav doesn't have a role in the team anymore. And I think you'll find as the season goes on with Tav will cover Sterling. I think that's how Clement's thinking. Maybe just have Tav in covering Sterling, who's quite injury prone. So there may be a use of keeping Tav. It's just, do you keep him on that money as your second right back? I'm not sure.
I mean, Craig, I'll bring you in on that before I finish things up. But there was a couple of occasions, Craig, where it's almost as if he falls asleep for a few seconds or his brain doesn't kick in. Defensively, it's going to cost us a few goals this season. And I think Ian's right. Going forward, he doesn't really offer much anymore.
It will cost us, because history's shown it has cost us in the past, and Tav is older than he was in the past. So it's guaranteed to cost us. For me, I still wouldn't be surprised if, come the 1st of September, James Tavernier isn't here. I think he will be, but also it wouldn't surprise me if a bid came in from someone and he was allowed to move on. And I can see Sterling once he's back fit, and that's the worry for me, is that I'd play Sterling right back, but I also think I'd play Sterling in midfield. So you kind of need two Sterlings, one to play full back and one to play midfield. But yeah, I think Tav today, you could see that he hasn't had much of a pre-season for whatever reason, and he needs to get up to speed quick. If he's going to stay, he needs to get up to speed quick. But there's a few players that need to get up to speed. I just saw a comment about Danilo. I'll come back to that. Why he didn't get any form of minutes today. I would like someone to ask the manager, because a £6 million striker who could have come on and made a difference and doesn't.
Well, I mean, I'll take that to you, Connor, about Danilo. I mean, if I can try and make a case, I'm not saying that this is my point of view or I agree with this. Maybe the managers looked at the game and thought, I don't want to risk Danilo. I don't know. I can't answer why he didn't get any minutes.
Not about me either. It's a mystery to me. I mean, I think, yeah, you could say I don't want to risk him, but don't want to risk him for what? He's not going to start him on Tuesday. No chance. I mean, I will eat this headset if Danilo starts on Tuesday. It's just not happening.
Make sure you sell enough broadband packages first.
Maybe he comes off the bench on Tuesday. Maybe he starts against Motherwell. Again, I doubt it. I don't know why. I mean, it could be, as CGM says, it might just be the simple fact that he isn't fit. But then I would make the argument, if he's not fit, why is he on the bench? There's no point in having him taking up a spot on the bench. You could have brought a young lad in and put him in the bench. If he's not fit and there's no way he can play the game, you don't put him in the bench. So he probably wasn't fit to start. I would have thought, with 10 minutes left to go and it's still nothing each, why not roll the dice and change it? Why not take Dessers off, put Danilo on, and see if he can do anything different, and maybe just unsettle their backline a bit? Because the one thing about their backline, again, I go back to it, they were very composed and stable, but they also had got to grips with Dessers by that point. He wasn't really causing any problems for them. And I think sometimes when legs are getting tired with 10 minutes to go, if you change that with a fresh striker, and Danilo can be quite physical as well, that might have just caused a wee disruption there. So I'm not sure why he decided to not use him today, but who knows? Because I don't know, other than the fact that if he stays, it seems clear to me, unless something changes and somebody else comes in, that Dessers is looking likely to become Ont's number one pick, possibly through just circumstance more than anything else, because he's the only one who's consistently fit. I agree with Craig's head shaking, by the way. I don't want that to be the case, but right now it appears to be. I don't know then what order does Danilo and Inigamani fall into when he comes into the squad. It's very much up for debate right now. That's why the man who was at the top of the pitch for Hearts today should have been at the top of the pitch for us, but hey-ho, we'll see no more.
How many goals did he score today?
What's your point? How many goals has he scored?
How many goals would he have scored with the 3 chances Dessers had?
Yeah,
Well, he had a couple of good chances himself. They never scored. No. I'm not.
Nowhere
near. I'm not overpraising a Hearts player over a Rangers player. Absolutely no chance.
I'm not overpraising Shankland, but the chances he had to
take,
they were nowhere near as. They were
I was the biggest advocate. I was the biggest advocate for us signing Shankland 2 years ago. Right, I'm not sure if that ship's maybe sailed now, because if you watch Shankland the last 20 minutes, he was blowing out his arse as well. So as much as he absolutely was it 34 goals last year, 24 in the Premier League, brilliant on a team that you wouldn't. What was it? I saw the stat at Sky Sports. He scored 44% of all Hearts goals last year. Brilliant, but in all honesty, is he fitter than Dessers? Nah. Is he better than Dessers? Probably. But listen, if he could, at the end of his contract, is going to walk to us for free, come on in. But I'm not paying money for him.
But the guy, look, I get it. And there's people, again, as they tend to want to do, having a go because we're talking about Shankland. But the fact of the matter is, the guy scored 30 goals for Hearts. Come on. If he
against teams that don't park the bus. Yeah.
You say that though, right?
I just say that.
We have to get away
against Celtic, wasn't
it? Well, yeah, but we have to get away from that stupid mindset that the idea that teams are going to park the bus against us. That's going to happen. Teams are going to play a low block, particularly teams at the lower end of the table. But you know what? It's for us to get around that. And if you've got somebody who doesn't take 6, 7, 8 chances to put the ball in the back of the net, up at the top end of the pitch, you win those games. And that's what we need. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that is 100% Shankland. There could be somebody else out there that is. Also, Celtic isn't bad.
He would just have to play in the width for the box. He'd just have to play in the width for the box. That's it.
And he would score a barrel with the goals. I'm winding corner up.
Yeah, of course he would. There's no so much. It's just when I think people need to. I get it, right? I appreciate that Dessers get 22 goals last season, and fair enough to him. I think sometimes the criticism,
and he should have got 40.
Well, that's the point. He probably
you said that about Ali McCoist.
Yeah. Listen, the one thing I would say, and I think sometimes it can go over the top with the criticism, is there are some people who think that he should score every single chance he gets. No striker in history has scored every chance they've ever had. Some of the best missed chances. So I think you've got to balance it in that aspect. But for me, I just think Shankland is a better goal scorer.
I actually can't believe I'm on here defending him. I spent the whole of last year cursing him. You know?
Right, okay. Look, as we sit here, Ian, we've got Kiev on Tuesday, but after that today, how are you feeling? How do you think the support's feeling? Well, we are the support.
What we don't know any more than we did against Berlin. You know what I mean? So it's just a case of be patient. Whether we like it or not, be patient. You know? And we just have to do it. Now, I know for a fact, Christ, half the folk I sit beside at Ibrox, well, now Hampden. Are probably going to get. They're going to get a whiff of that. If they get a whiff of that against Motherwell and they're not beating Motherwell convincingly, and we go out to Kyiv, you know, I know we are a fickle bunch. A lot of these guys won't go back. That's the bottom line. They just won't go along, you know. And then that hurts us even more, ironically, because whether we like it or not, we need to stick behind the team, regardless. And as painful as it is. And it is painful, and I think it might get worse before it gets better. I just think we need to get to January and look at where we are again, and hopefully we've seen signs of improvement, a more settled team, a few new faces, blah blah blah. You know, I think we almost. I mean, I'm thinking what I saw today at that game is two teams, Rangers and Hearts, that Celtic will not be troubled by this year. That's what I saw. You know, I mean, these two teams aren't going to challenge Celtic this year. From what we've seen of Celtic at pre-season and what we remember from last year, we've got a wee bit to catch up where we were. Never mind where we're going to at the moment. We're getting a little bit worse before we get better. Is the plan, which is pretty much a long story. That's the short way of the long way that John Bennett went around saying it last week, and he's obviously bought Phil into the equation in an extra year's on his contract. You know that you'd be amazed how much that sweetens a deal. So yeah, I mean, I think in all honesty, we just need to bide our time, support the team, because a lot of these guys are young players, and if we don't get behind them, they will crumble, absolutely crumble. So we've just got to suck it up, get on with it, and hope that the manager knows what he's doing. Because people better than us have obviously certainly. People that know more about football than us have certainly decided that they see something in Phil Clement. And if that's the case, then, hopefully this time in a couple of months' time, we're sitting on the podcast and we're thinking, starting to see what Phil's doing now.
I need to apologise to Nathan. He's not happy with me. He's really not happy with me. I'm making up lies and I meant to be the host. I was having a laugh with Connor, Nathan. My apologies. Going forward, I will not have a laugh, and I will not make jokes. Blah 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 blah. I will not do it. I will not do it. Right. So, is there should we be, Craig, less kind of reactionary to this draw than what perhaps we might be because of how we're all feeling? Is it not a case of we've got no other option than to trust the manager, trust the process, until such times as that does genuinely no longer become an option?
I think we always should be a bit less reactionary, but that's part of the course of being a Rangers fan. If you're not winning every game 3 or 4-0, then it's obviously not going well. I think in retrospect, if we'd gone to Tynecastle 10, 12 games into the season, we're playing well, we draw 0-0, we'd probably come away and go, actually, that's a good point. It's just because of the upheaval we've had, poor pre-season that we've had, the sort of the history we've obviously got of having good games against Hearts. You kind of think, we should have, and we didn't play very well. Then we should be walking away with a win. But it's a long season, like Iain says. I think we're going to need to be a bit more patient, which is very difficult, and it might get a little bit more difficult over the next few weeks before it actually gets better. But what I don't want to be doing is in a situation where we're facing sacking or getting rid of another manager, because that's not going to solve anything long term. It's going to put more money out the club, and I think we just need to trust what the club are doing.
Then you've got the other end of the spectrum with supporters, and look, quite rightly, you're a supporter. You're entitled to think, believe, and say what you want. But Charles has put in a super chat. Thank you very much, Charles, for the support as ever. And Connor, I'll take this to you, buddy. Dessers' chance, the keeper saved. Composure could have put it in the far corner. I think composure in Dessers, that's a fair enough point. We're winning nothing. Not me being negative. It's the truth. And the boy Taylor had Cortes in his pocket. The we're winning nothing first game of the season. I get why fans think that. I understand why certain people are down and I've got no faith in the team and the manager, whatever. I understand why. I'm not quite there yet, but a draw in the first game of the season after pre-season, after the last 3 seasons, Connor, it's understandable why people are pretty negative.
Well, yeah, aye, it is. But then, you know, I hate to say this, but last night we were sitting on the podcast and I'm getting battered by people in the comments saying that we all need to be positive and we need to get behind the team and get behind the manager, and you're too negative and you smile too much as well because
Who
people can't
cares?
decide what they want. The point I'm making is this is the issue with the fan base. We're all bipolar. One day we want to be positive as oh hell, we're going to win everything, we're going to do this. The next day, you know, we've had a draw, and because of the way pre-seasons went, people are a bit like deflated again. And I get it, right? I feel the same way. But you know, yeah, we need to be consistent as a fan base and in terms of not chopping and changing. You know, right now we're in game day 1. We've got a point on the board. If you're being uber positive, it's a point more than we had after game day 1 last season. If you look at it through rose tinted spectacles, yes, off the back of pre-season, and you know, I think it's now. If you look at even the last game of last season, I think it's 6 games in a row now without a win. That is concerning. However, pre-season games are pre-season games. We changed the entire squad each half in those games, basically, or at various times, so that can happen. I just think that for now, let's keep the heat. Let's see what happens in the Champions League qualifiers during the week and go on to Motherwell next week and try and build for there. Would have liked to have got a draw today, a win today? Yeah, of course I would have. Ends up being a draw. There is a positive in there. We've kept a clean sheet. No, something that we say often recently. Even if Tav did absolutely put the frighteners on me when he almost, he somehow managed to get it over the bar. Fair play him, but Jesus. So
I think that was more luck than judgment, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. I honestly, after the pre-season as well, I'm thinking, please no again. But at the end of the day, I get it. It's tough because we're not winning things consistently enough. I think if we had this draw today on the back of winning 2 cups last season and a half decent pre-season, I don't think it would have been as big of a problem or a worry. But the issue is we didn't do that. So, but I'll give it a while yet before I start hitting the panic button completely.
Yeah.
Just Nathan, buddy, calm down, right? What I actually said was that Dessers plays against more teams who park the bus than that Lawrence Shankland does. That's all I said, buddy. I never said Hearts park the bus. So just chill, buddy. Just chill. And I was having a joke. It's the last time I try to be funny. I know I'm not funny, but it's the last time I try to be funny. Right, we'll leave it there, folks. We're back tomorrow night with a members show at 7:30, and then on Monday night we'll be back with the usual Monday night Rabble, and then Tuesday we've got the reaction to Kiev, and then on Thursday we've got the members show, and then on Friday we've got the Friday night show, and then at the week it just goes on. There's so much content, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So if you haven't already and you're watching on YouTube, please do feel free to subscribe and click the wee notification bell so you know when we're going to go live. Give the show a like if you enjoyed it, and of course if you want to help to support the show, then you can become a member. The join button is underneath the window or on your phone in the description. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well, this is also live streamed to, and follow us across all of social media. My thanks to all the guys in the comments, even the people watching who don't comment. Thank you for tuning in, and all the people who watch this back, and all the super chats as well that helps to support the show. It's greatly appreciated. Connor, Iain, Craig, thank you very much. First reaction, first positive, not positive. What's the word I'm looking for, Iain? Competitive reaction of the season done. That's the word I'm looking for. It was half positive. We'll go half positive. And yeah, so we'll see all the members tomorrow night, 7:30, and we'll see the rest of you Monday night, 7:30. So thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll speak to you all very, very soon.